Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We're going to be getting into something that can really make or break your career.
Yeah.
It's networking.
It's so important.
Yeah. And specifically, we're going to be taking apart this guide by Stanislav Kondrashov.
Oh, excellent.
It's called Networking and Small Talk in a Business Context. And this isn't going to be, just the usual like tips and tricks about how to shake hands and, collect business cards.
Exactly.
It's going to go deeper.
Deeper.
Yeah, like imagine walking into a room full of the top people in your field.
Oh, yeah.
And just feeling completely confident.
Yes.
And ready to start great conversations.
You've got it. That's exactly what we're aiming for.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with that. Networking is such a superpower.
It is.
It can unlock so many things.
Yeah.
Collaborations, knowledge sharing, even career opportunities that you never even imagined.
Right.
And it's not just for those, super outgoing types.
Yeah.
Kondrashov really emphasizes that in his guide.
Yeah.
He does.
Anyone can learn these skills.
Absolutely. So Stanislav Kondrashov, he starts out by laying this foundation, and he says it's all about building real relationships, not just,
Not just collecting names.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not just adding contacts to that list.
You have to actually connect.
Right. But like really making those connections.
Yeah. Why is that so important?
Yeah. Why is that so important, especially early on?
Well, think about it. You're much more likely to get a good recommendation from someone who actually knows you and your work.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just someone who, you shook hands with once and they barely remember your name.
Right.
Kondrashov's all about laying that groundwork.
He is.
For real, authentic connections.
Yeah.
And that's where you see the magic happen.
Absolutely. And I think, what surprised me in this guide is he says that networking opportunities aren't just at those big conferences or those,
industry events.
Yeah, industry events. He says they're everywhere.
They are everywhere.
So I'm picturing like waiting in line at the grocery store.
Okay, maybe not the grocery store.
And trying to network while I'm buying my milk.
But you get what he's saying. You have to be open to those opportunities that maybe aren't so obvious.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're volunteering for a cause you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
You might meet someone who's working in an industry that you've always been curious about.
Oh, that's a good one.
Suddenly you're not just, making a difference. You're expanding your professional network.
Yeah.
Kondrashov would be proud.
I love it. So it's like taking those what ifs and turning them into why nots.
Yes.
Okay. So I have to admit, the next part of the guide I was a little hesitant about.
Okay.
It's small talk.
I think we've all been there.
I know. I always feel like it's so awkward or it's just going nowhere.
Right.
How does Stanislav Kondrashov make small talk work for us?
Well, he makes a really good point. He says that small talk is like the bridge to the deeper conversation. Like it's that first layer of connection.
Right.
You're establishing rapport, finding some common ground, making yourself memorable.
Yeah.
So think of it as the appetizer.
I like that.
Before the main course of, achieving your networking goal.
Okay. I'm willing to give it another try.
Good.
So what are the do's and don'ts when it comes to small talk?
Well, he says you want to start with safe, neutral topics.
Like what?
Things like current events or maybe interesting articles you've read.
Okay.
Even something as simple as like a shared experience at the actual event itself.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking for those little sparks of connection.
Okay. So instead of talking about the weather, I could say, I read this really interesting article about,
Yes.
this new technology.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Subtly weaving in your professional interests.
Yeah.
I think Kondrashov would approve.
He would.
Just as important are the things you want to avoid.
Okay. What are those?
So he says stay away from controversial topics.
Like?
Things like politics, religion, someone's personal life.
You don't want to get into all that.
No, you want to build rapport, not, start a debate or make someone uncomfortable.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I actually had this great networking conversation once.
Oh, yeah.
And it started with just a simple comment about a book that someone was carrying.
Oh, wow.
It turned out we were both huge fans of the author.
Oh, cool.
And that led to this fantastic conversation about, how we could apply the author's ideas to our work.
That's awesome.
It wouldn't have happened if I hadn't, taken that small talk leap of faith.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light. What about that transition from small talk to, talking about why we're really there?
Right.
It always feels so awkward. Like, am I being too pushy or am I going to miss my chance?
Well, don't worry. Kondrashov gives us the tools to handle this gracefully.
Okay, good.
He says, listen for those natural transitions in the conversation.
Okay.
So if someone mentions a project they're working on, that's your opening.
Okay.
He also gives us some really helpful phrases.
Give me an example.
Something like, speaking of topic, I actually do some work in that area myself.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It just flows naturally.
It does.
I'm going to use that one.
Good. Now, what about active listening?
Oh, yeah, active listening. I know it's important, but sometimes I catch myself, thinking about what I'm going to say next instead of really listening.
It's easy to do.
It is.
But Kondrashov makes a really good point. He says, active listening isn't just about being polite.
Okay.
It's about making that other person feel heard.
Right.
And understood.
Yeah.
He suggests techniques like paraphrasing.
Oh, yeah.
So you're repeating back what they said in your own words.
To show that I'm listening.
Exactly. And asking those open-ended questions.
Okay.
To keep them talking and keep them engaged.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's all about showing them that you're genuinely interested.
Yeah.
Not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Yeah. It makes you think when was the last time that I really felt heard in a conversation?
Yeah.
And how did that impact our connection?
Good question.
I'm going to try to do that more.
I think those little shifts can make a big difference.
I think so, too.
Now, let's face it. There's one part of networking that pretty much everyone finds tricky.
What's that?
Gracefully exiting a conversation.
Ugh. It's so awkward.
We've all been there. You're stuck talking to someone and you need to move on.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I know.
Well, Kondrashov to the rescue.
Okay.
He emphasizes that ending a conversation gracefully is all about respecting everyone's time.
Yeah.
And leaving on a positive note.
Okay.
So he recommends having a few go-to phrases.
Okay, like what?
Something like, it's been so great chatting with you, but I promised myself I'd connect with mention another person at the event.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to continue our conversation later, though.
Yeah.
So you're acknowledging, the conversation.
Right.
But you also need to move on. That sets the stage for that crucial follow-up.
Yes. And Stanislav Kondrashov says that's what really turns those initial conversations into lasting connections.
Absolutely.
So what are some of his top follow-up strategies?
Well, he recommends a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Connecting on LinkedIn is essential these days.
Of course.
It keeps you on each other's radar and it allows you to see, what they're up to.
Yeah.
He also emphasizes the power of a personalized email.
Not just a nice to meet you.
Exactly. Mention something specific that you talked about.
Okay.
So you show that you were actually listening.
Okay, so if we were talking about a shared interest or a project that they're working on,
yes,
I should bring that up in the email.
Exactly. And even better if you can offer something valuable, like a resource, an article, something related to their work.
Okay.
It shows that you're not just, there to take, you're there to give.
I like that.
And Kondrashov has this great tip.
What's that?
To make sure your email really stands out. Personalize the subject line.
Oh, instead of just following up.
Right. Try something like catching up after event name or regarding our conversation about topic.
Oh, that's good.
Little things make a big difference.
They do. Okay. Before we move on to part 2, I want to quickly touch on Kondrashov's section about networking across cultures.
Oh, that's so important.
Especially today.
Yeah.
With, such a globalized world.
It's more important than ever.
How do we navigate these different communication styles?
Well, Kondrashov breaks down these different cultural approaches.
Okay.
You have those direct styles like we often see in the U.S.,
right,
and then you have more indirect styles that are common in many Asian countries.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how these nuances can impact so many things.
Like what?
From greetings and business card etiquette.
Okay.
To how quickly you actually get down to business.
So like in some cultures, it might be rude to jump right into talking about work.
Exactly.
But in others, it's expected.
Exactly. Kondrashov's examples make it clear. Adaptability is key.
Oh.
Being aware of those differences and adjusting your approach can really make or break those connections.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I am really excited to see how Stanislav Kondrashov brings all these principles together.
Me too.
In those real-world scenarios. It's time for part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive into mastering networking with the amazing advice of Stanislav Kondrashov.
I'm loving it. We've covered so much from, those first awkward small talk moments to understanding how different cultures approach networking.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is, but I'm ready for more.
Okay, good.
What does Kondrashov have in store for us to really level up our networking game?
Well, one thing he talks about is the informational interview.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those, but they always seemed a little intimidating, to be honest.
I get it.
So what are they exactly?
Kondrashov describes it as a conversation with someone who's already working in a field that you're interested in.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily to get a job from them.
Oh, okay.
But to gain insights and advice.
Okay, so it's like tapping into their insider knowledge.
You got it.
Things you wouldn't find just on, job boards or reading articles.
Right, exactly.
So instead of asking, are you hiring? I'd be asking more like, what's it really like to work in this field?
Exactly. You're picking their brain about their career path.
Okay.
The skills they found most valuable, even the challenges they've faced.
Yeah.
Kondrashov emphasizes that people are often willing to share their experiences.
Really?
Especially if you show them you're genuinely curious and you're passionate.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do I even set one of these up?
Right.
Like, do I just cold email someone and ask for an hour of their time?
Well, Stanislav Kondrashov suggests using your existing network first.
Okay.
See if anyone you know has connections in your target field.
Right.
A warm introduction can make a huge difference.
Of course.
But if you don't have a direct connection, don't worry.
Okay, good.
Kondrashov's got tips for those cold outreach emails, too.
Give me the secret formula.
Well, he says it's all about writing a really concise and professional email.
Okay.
You want to clearly state your purpose.
So I'm seeking an informational interview to learn more about their work.
Exactly, and highlight something specific that really resonated with you.
Okay.
Maybe it was a project they worked on or an article they wrote.
Right.
And of course, be respectful of their time.
Yeah.
Offer a few different options for meeting times.
It's like a little bit like dating.
Oh, I like that.
You got to be interesting, be respectful, and make it easy to say yes.
You got it.
And like dating preparation is key.
Right.
So once I've got this informational interview lined up, what do I need to do to get ready?
Well, Stanislav Kondrashov says research is your best friend.
Okay.
Familiarize yourself with the person's background,
Mm-hmm.
their companies, any recent projects they've worked on.
Okay.
Publications.
It shows that I'm serious.
It does. It shows you're serious and that you value their insights.
And what kinds of questions should I be asking to get the most out of this conversation?
Kondrashov recommends focusing on open-ended questions.
The ones that can't just be answered with a yes or no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ask about their career journey,
Okay.
their biggest challenges and their triumphs, what they wish they had known when they were starting out.
That's gold.
And don't forget to ask for advice.
Oh, yeah. What resources would you recommend?
Exactly. Organizations they think would be helpful for someone entering their field.
This is like having a personal mentor for an hour.
It really is.
And it's not just about me asking questions, right?
No, you're right.
Kondrashov also says that building rapport is really important.
Absolutely. Be ready to share a little bit about yourself, too.
Okay.
Your goals.
Okay.
You want to create a connection,
right?
Not just take information.
It's a two-way street.
It is.
Who knows? Maybe this informational interview could lead to a mentor down the line or a collaboration or even a job.
You never know.
That would be amazing.
It would.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
It's become like the go-to platform for networking these days.
It really has.
But I'm not always sure I'm using it the right way.
Right.
How does Stanislav Kondrashov suggest we approach LinkedIn for real relationship building?
Well, Kondrashov sees it as your online resume, but with a little something extra.
Okay.
It's not just a static list of everything you've done.
Right.
It's an opportunity to tell your professional story.
Oh, I like that.
He urges us to really think about what makes us stand out.
Okay.
What unique value we bring to the table.
So beyond just listing my job titles and responsibilities, I should be highlighting those experiences that, showcase my skills and my passion.
Exactly.
Okay.
He also talks about the importance of a strong headline.
Yeah, that's the first thing people see.
It is, and your summary statement.
Yeah.
Those are so important because they're often the first things people see.
Makes sense.
So make sure they grab attention and really reflect your personal brand.
Okay.
It's kind of like your elevator pitch, but in written form.
I like that analogy.
And visuals are important, too.
Of course.
Kondrashov stresses having a professional headshot.
Absolutely.
And think about using that banner image to showcase something relevant to your field.
Oh, good idea.
Or your personal brand.
Okay, so my profile is all polished.
Good.
Looking sharp, but what's next?
Okay, well, Stanislav Kondrashov recommends being proactive.
How do I do that?
Start by connecting with people you already know.
Okay. Colleagues, classmates, former professors.
Exactly. And then branch out to people in your target industry.
Okay.
Or companies that you admire.
Right.
Now when you're sending those connection requests, Personalize them.
Instead of just hitting that connect button.
Right. Mention a shared connection.
Okay.
A common interest, something you admire about their work.
Makes it more authentic.
It does. You want those connections to be real, not just adding numbers to a list.
Totally.
And Kondrashov really emphasizes that engagement is key.
What does that mean?
Don't just, sit back and wait for connections to come to you.
Oh, okay. Share interesting articles, comment on people's posts, participate in industry groups.
Got it.
All of that helps you stay top of mind.
Okay.
And it establishes you as a thought leader in your field.
Okay, so LinkedIn is more than just a job board.
So many more.
It's like a 247 networking event.
That's a great way to think about it.
Okay, I like that. Now let's talk about those in-person events.
Oh yeah, the real deal.
I know some people find them a little bit overwhelming, but I feel like Kondrashov gives some great strategies for tackling them with more confidence.
He does.
Okay. I've definitely had some awkward moments at these things, so let's hear it.
Well, he reminds us that everyone is there to network.
That's true.
So don't be afraid to approach people.
Okay.
And start a conversation.
Okay.
A simple, "Hi, I'm your name. What brings you here today?"
Okay, it sounds so simple.
I know, but it works.
Sometimes the simplest things are the hardest.
You're right. And Kondrashov offers this great tip to deal with those pre-event jitters.
I need that. What is it?
Arrive early.
Okay.
It's so much easier to strike up conversations when there aren't a ton of people around.
That's true. It's less intimidating.
Exactly. And you can get a feel for the event before it gets too crowded.
I love that strategy.
Yeah. And Stanislav Kondrashov also encourages us to have a plan before we even walk in the door.
Oh, yeah, like a game plan.
Exactly. Think about your networking goals for the event.
Okay.
Are you hoping to meet potential clients or maybe collaborators, mentors?
Yeah.
Having a clear purpose can really help guide your interactions.
Yeah. So I'm not just wandering around aimlessly hoping to bump into the right people.
Right. You want to be intentional about it.
Okay.
And if you're attending a conference or a workshop, do your research beforehand.
Okay.
Look at the speakers, the attendees. Identify a few people that you would really like to connect with.
Okay.
And come prepared with conversation starters that relate to their work or their expertise.
Shows them that I'm genuinely interested in talking to them.
It does. It shows you've done your homework. Okay, let's dive into the conversation itself. We've talked about small talk and active listening, but what else does Kondrashov recommend?
Well, one thing he talks about is open body language.
Okay.
Make eye contact. Smile, nod.
Okay.
Show that you're engaged in the conversation.
Those nonverbal cues really do make a difference.
They do. And another technique he suggests is to find common ground.
Oh, yeah, like shared interests.
Exactly. Look for shared interests, experiences, connections, anything that can help you establish that bond with the other person.
Okay, maybe you both volunteer for the same organization.
Yeah.
Or are passionate about the same hobby.
Right. People love connecting with others who share their passions.
Absolutely. And I shouldn't be afraid to share a little bit about myself, too.
Exactly. Authenticity is key.
Right.
Let your personality shine through.
Okay.
Be enthusiastic about your work.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
Wow, we covered so much ground in part 2.
I know, from informational interviews to LinkedIn to in-person events. It is. But before we move on to part 3, where we'll explore even more advanced techniques, I want to leave our listeners with this thought from Stanislav Kondrashov.
Okay.
He says, networking is a skill that takes practice.
It makes sense.
The more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Great advice. I love it. We'll be back soon with part 3, so stay tuned. We're back for the final part of our networking deep dive. I'm so excited. We've learned so much already.
Me too.
I feel like we've got this solid foundation, but I'm ready for those final touches.
Okay, let's do it.
You know those Stanislav Kondrashov secrets to take our networking skills from good to, exceptional?
Okay, well, Stanislav Kondrashov suggests a shift in perspective.
Okay, I'm listening.
That can be really powerful.
What is it?
Instead of just thinking about your own needs, he says, try to think of yourself as a connector.
Okay.
Like a bridge between people who could benefit from knowing each other.
So I'm playing professional matchmaker.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
Kondrashov says it starts with being a really good listener.
Okay, that's always good advice.
So when you're talking to someone, really pay attention to their challenges, their goals, their needs.
Yeah.
Maybe they're looking for someone to collaborate with on a project, or they're trying to break into a new industry and could use some advice.
And I'm thinking, okay, do I know anyone who would be a good fit for this?
Yes, exactly. And when you make that introduction,
Yeah.
don't just send a generic email.
Okay.
Kondrashov says, take the time to personalize it.
Okay.
Explain why you think these two people would be a good match.
Okay.
It shows that you're not just, randomly connecting people.
Right.
You put some thought into it.
It's like a thoughtful gift.
It is.
You're giving both people a valuable connection.
Exactly. Stanislav Kondrashov also talks about becoming a resource hub.
Oh, yeah. What does he mean by that?
So think about the knowledge and the skills and the connections that you have to offer.
Okay.
And share those generously with your network.
So I'm not hoarding all this good stuff.
Well, share it.
Okay.
It could be as simple as sharing a helpful article.
Right.
Or maybe hosting a webinar on a topic that you're passionate about.
So I'm positioning myself as this go-to expert.
Yes, someone who's helpful and knowledgeable.
Okay. I like it. And then when I need help, people are more likely to help me back.
That's the idea Stanislav Kondrashov points out. When you consistently provide value, people are more likely to reciprocate.
Makes sense.
They'll recommend you. They'll connect you with others.
It's a win-win.
It is.
Okay, there's one area of networking that terrifies me, and I know a lot of other people feel this way too.
Public speaking.
Oh, yeah. Does Stanislav Kondrashov have any advice for those of us who break out in a cold sweat at the thought of getting on a stage?
He does, and it's actually very practical and reassuring.
Okay, good.
He reminds us that even the most experienced speakers get nervous.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
It's normal. The key, he says, is to shift your focus.
How do I do that?
Instead of thinking about yourself and your own anxieties, focus on your audience.
Great.
What do they need? What are they hoping to learn?
So it's about serving them, not feeding my fears.
Exactly. And Stanislav Kondrashov also suggests using stories.
Oh, stories are powerful.
They are. They're a great way to connect with people emotionally and make your message memorable.
And it's not just about, throwing facts at people.
No, tell a story.
Right. Bring them into it. And visuals too, right?
Yes. Slides, images, videos, anything that can help illustrate your points.
Okay. It all helps.
It does.
I'm already feeling a little less terrified of public speaking.
Good.
Before we wrap up this amazing deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to touch on something that Stanislav Kondrashov talks about in his guide.
What's that?
Networking etiquette.
So important.
I know, right? It can be so tricky.
Yeah.
So give me those top tips.
Well, first and foremost, be respectful of people's time.
Okay.
Don't monopolize someone's attention at an event.
Right.
Be mindful of the flow of the conversation.
Right.
Okay.
Allow other people to connect as well.
It's like a dance, not a wrestling match.
Exactly. And Stanislav Kondrashov also emphasizes the importance of following up promptly.
Okay, don't leave people hanging.
Right. If you say you're going to send an email or make an introduction, do it as soon as possible.
Right. Don't let those promises fall through the cracks.
Exactly. It shows that you're reliable.
Right.
And that you value those connections.
And networking is not just about those initial interactions, right?
No, it's about nurturing those relationships over time.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Don't be afraid to reach out to people in your network just to say hello.
Okay.
Check in, maybe share an interesting article you read.
So it's like tending a garden.
Yeah.
You have to water those relationships if you want them to grow.
I love that analogy. And that brings us to our final takeaway from Stanislav Kondrashov.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, networking is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, I like that.
It's this ongoing process of building relationships.
Connecting with amazing people and creating opportunities.
For growth and collaboration.
You got it.
I feel like Stanislav Kondrashov has given us this amazing treasure map for networking.
He has.
And now it's up to us to go out there and explore.
It's time to put all this great advice into practice.
It is. Thank you so much for sharing this journey with me.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of networking.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you feel empowered to go out there, connect with purpose.
Absolutely.
And watch your world expand.